you know someone who doesn't like having visitors at home? Or maybe that someone is you, the kind of person who feels a subtle discomfort just imagining someone sitting on the couch, who hesitates before saying you can come over, who prefers meeting people outside, in neutral places, where there is always a clear time to leave. And no, this isn't rudeness. It's not lack of affection, and it's definitely not rejection of people. Most of the time, it's something quiet, deep, and psychological. For some people, home is not just a physical space. Home is emotional territory. It's the one place where the body fully relaxes, where the mind slows down without effort, and where there is no obligation to be emotionally available. When someone enters that space, even with good intentions, something inside shifts. The silence changes texture. Breathing becomes shallower. The body moves into a subtle state of alert. This happens because for certain personalities, constant presence equals overstimulation. Even if no one is talking, even if the visitor is loved, the mere presence of another person alters the internal rhythm. The nervous system notices, the mind adapts, and what should feel like rest quietly turns into effort. People who hate having visitors are often highly sensitive to their environment. They notice details most people overlook: changes in tone, mood, posture, emotional energy. When the house is empty, all of this settles. When someone enters, even without asking for anything, an invisible pressure appears to respond, to engage, to be present. You may have felt this before. The visitor leaves, and before any sense of missing them, there is relief, a deep exhale, a feeling of returning to yourself, not because the person was unpleasant, but because your internal rhythm is finally restored. That relief is not accidental. It's information. These people don't hate people. They hate emotional intrusion. Home represents the last place where they don't have to explain themselves, perform socially, or manage someone else's emotions. It's where they can be quiet for hours without guilt, where they don't have to answer questions or sustain conversations. There is often a history behind this. Many grew up in homes that were never truly calm, homes filled with conflict, noise, emotional instability, or constant tension. In those environments, the body learns to associate presence with vigilance. So later in life, when silence finally becomes available, it is protected fiercely. Visitors can unknowingly activate old bodily memories, even when the mind sees no threat. Emotional exhaustion also plays a role. Deep-feeling people often spend years adapting to others, listening, supporting, accommodating. Over time, they realize they need spaces where they don't have to hold anyone emotionally. An empty home becomes that space. Having visitors also activates social expectations, offering something, maintaining conversation, keeping a pleasant atmosphere. Even when no one explicitly demands this, the expectation exists. For emotionally tired individuals, this invisible responsibility is heavy. They often enjoy connection, but only when they can choose the conditions: short meetings, defined times, neutral locations, places with a beginning and an end. Home, however, has no emotional clock. Visits can stretch indefinitely. That uncertainty creates tension. If this resonates, you may have felt guilty for preferring your home empty. You may have wondered if something is wrong with you. Psychology doesn't see this as social failure. It sees emotional awareness. Not everyone regulates best through company. Some regulate through quiet. These personalities are usually deeply present when they choose to be. They don't avoid connection. They manage energy. They value depth over frequency, quality over quantity. And this shapes how they relate to their living space. If you're listening closely, you might recognize how often you've delayed invitations just to protect your peace. That's not dishonesty. It's self-preservation. It's the body setting boundaries before the mind can explain them. Understanding this changes how you see yourself, not as difficult, but as attuned. There comes a moment when emotional fatigue is no longer temporary. It settles in, quietly. People who hate having visitors often reach this point without noticing. It doesn't happen after one bad interaction or one uncomfortable visit. It happens after years of being emotionally available when they were already tired, after too many conversations where they listened more than they spoke, after too many moments where they ignored their own need for silence. At that stage, home stops being just a place to rest the body. It becomes the only place where the mind finally lowers its guard, where there is no need to read between the lines, manage impressions, or anticipate emotional reactions. The house becomes a controlled emotional environment, predictable, quiet, and safe. And when someone enters that space, even kindly, the nervous system reacts before logic can intervene. This reaction is physical. The shoulders tense, breathing becomes shallow, thoughts speed up, not because the visitor is unwanted, but because the body associates presence with effort. Even silence feels different when someone else is there. It's no longer restorative silence, it's monitored silence. The mind stays alert, waiting for cues, signals, or expectations. Many of these individuals struggle to explain why visits bother them so much. From the outside, it seems irrational. Nothing bad is happening, no one is demanding anything, and yet internally, the discomfort is real. Psychology understands this as a loss of emotional control. When someone enters the home, the person loses full command over their internal pace, when to speak, when to withdraw, when to simply exist without being seen. There is also an identity conflict happening. Outside the home, many of these people adapt constantly. They adjust tone, energy, and presence to fit situations. At home, that adaptation stops. They return to their natural state. Receiving visitors forces those two versions of the self to overlap, and for someone who has spent years managing their presentation to the world, that overlap feels exhausting. Another important layer is predictability. These individuals often rely on routine to feel emotionally balanced. They have specific times to think, rest, eat, or simply be quiet. Visitors disrupt that rhythm, even unintentionally. Conversations extend. Departures are uncertain. The lack of a clear endpoint creates tension. It's not about disliking people, it's about disliking uncertainty in the one place meant for recovery. Many people like this also carry an invisible guilt. They know society expects homes to be open, welcoming, and shared. They've been told that refusing visits is cold or antisocial, so they often say yes when their body is saying no. And every time they override that signal, the exhaustion deepens. Over time, they learn, sometimes painfully, that protecting peace is not selfish, it is necessary. Choosing not to receive visitors often becomes the first real boundary these people set, and boundaries always feel uncomfortable at first. They create fear of being misunderstood, of disappointing others, of seeming distant. But with time, the relief becomes undeniable. The body responds positively, sleep improves, thoughts slow down, emotional clarity returns. It's important to understand that these individuals are not avoiding connection, they are avoiding depletion. They can be warm, attentive, and deeply present, just not constantly. They give best when they choose the moment, when they can enter connection from fullness, not obligation. This is why many prefer meeting people outside their home: cafes, walks, neutral spaces, places with natural beginnings and endings, environments where connection exists without invasion, where leaving doesn't require explanation, where solitude is not threatened. Psychologically, this is called environmental self-regulation. It's the ability to choose surroundings that support emotional balance. For some, stimulation restores energy. For others, silence does. Neither is wrong. Problems arise only when people are forced into environments that work against their nervous system. If you recognize yourself here, it's likely you've been labeled difficult, antisocial, or distant at some point. But those labels miss the truth. You are not rejecting people, you're respecting your limits, and that respect is often learned only after years of ignoring them. There is something deeply healing about accepting this part of yourself, about no longer apologizing for needing quiet, about understanding that your home is not a social obligation, it's a sanctuary, a place where you don't perform, explain, or manage expectations. If you've stayed until now, it's probably because this description feels personal. Maybe you've never had the words to explain why your home feels sacred. Now you do. It's not dislike, it's protection. If this describes you, write in the comments, "My home is my refuge," or simply, "This is me." Naming it can be the first step towards honoring it. And if reflections like this resonate with you, stay here. This channel is for people who feel deeply, think quietly, and are learning to protect their peace.